think we will take off right away. No introductions. I think all of us know each other very well. All right. I want to start with Prabhakar. I think this session is extremely important. Risk mitigation and scalability in commodity financing. We heard expert speakers this morning talk about the fact that while the government numbers, as far as agricultural loans are concerned, government numbers are looking very good. On the ground, actually, the delivery of credit is much less than what those numbers actually suggest. And therefore, there are apprehensions relating to risks associated with lending, and of course, there are ground realities which actually mean that money is actually not reaching the really needy borrowers. So let's look at what the banks are doing. We have at least two banks, one collateral manager and one advisor on ag risk. Therefore, let's start with HDFC Bank. What are your thoughts on this subject? How do you propose to scale up this commodity financing? And are there any new products in the pipeline? And kindly advise.
Yeah, thank you. I think I have to get up because I have some presentation. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. Good afternoon. I have just 4 slides presentation that will keep my talking less, and you guys will understand better. So
the ground rule is 5 minutes per speaker, and then we'll have 2 or 3 questions. We'll take.
Yeah, no problem. Since morning we have seen lot of economy is good, or everybody shares that there is a good scope for the business. But as a private bank, or all of a year, I think 80% of the population, they are related to commodity finance. And as JP said in the morning, we are the people, we started this commodity finance in industry 10 years back. And today we really feel that our hair are grown, we are on BP tablets. Why? Because of this commodity finance. But why, in spite of that, why new bankers wanted to join and do commodity finance? Why? Because there are no NPS. I tell you, other than 1 or 2 instances in a year in this commodity business, otherwise there are no NPS in this industry. Where this industry has grown, when we started in 2004-5, guys like, there are so many guys with me who work with me, we started business, we started with 400 crores, 500 crores in 2004-5, but it has not grown that much the way pre-harvest has grown. Pre-harvest has grown from 1,000 crore to now 8.5 lakh crores, right? But this, what about commodity finance? Commodity finance has grown only 35,000 crores. Whether there is no potential? Yes, there is a potential. But vis-a-vis the crop loans, why commodity finance is not growing? That is the big challenge I think NABARD and these people are in. I'll just stick to my presentation. Basically, I'll tell you what we feel. You can add to how risk can be covered, how risk can be reduced by way of improving the efficiency in the system by digitalization. You know, HDFC Bank has recently launched three second loan. Same way we are thinking like this. We want our relationship managers, they work at the field level, they go to the farmers, they initiate the farming documentation, then parallelly they go to the warehouses, warehousing addition also they do, SR also generated from the field through the system. We are one of the first bank who handed over our access of our system to the collateral managers and all our stakeholders, that is service providers. They get all these things on their desktop. So there is a communication, whatever is going on mail and phone between our RMs and the collateral manager and service provider has been reduced. Parallelly, bank process approves the limit and money goes into the, one question will come that whether 100% money goes into by way of account credit. Yes, 80% we do. 80% within bank account, 20% to other bank account by way of RTGS NEFT. Because still today, farmers prefer to have their loan getting created into the local cooperative banks. That we have to keep on doing this. Still they wanted, till we reach door deep, low, rather in deeper geography as a HDFC bank. Then what about the risk? What we are looking at is a commodity risk, quality risk, price risk. I think these risks are known to all the people who are sitting here. So I'll just move to the next slide. Flood, fire. One point I want to cover: flood, fire, theft, risk. Yes. Next session is insurance company session. I think they should cover this. How insurance is not paid to the bank. If what are the clauses or sub clauses? What I suffer mostly is whenever security guard is not provided by my borrower or collateral manager, I don't get theft claim at all. Then internal consumption of the agri commodities is not at all covered by any insurance company, not even my company also.
Prabhakar, one more minute.
Yeah, boss. Yeah. Only one slide. So there is one more risk, that is funding in warehouse receipt commodity stock without commodity stock. That can be by way of GPS tracking. What we are looking here is ESR directly from collateral manager to bank, then stock tracking through the Android apps. Then stock loss after funding. There is what we are saying is, if somebody takes out the stock by way of connivance with our business partner or maybe by theft, so that can be tracked by way of some chips into the stocks. We have done the same thing in case of milk to money ATMs, where our money from the milk to money ATMs, small ATMs where we keep 5 lakh in cooperative dairy societies. So that also every month theft was happening. So what we did is we put a SMS alarm system to the shutters of that, and we are trying to implement same to the warehouses, selected warehouses as a pilot. Then e-reporting through apps which will cover the risk during the go-round operation. There are so many risks in the operation that all of us know. The stock release is one of the serious thing for the banks. So many times stock gets released, borrower has deposited the money, but he just tells the banker that to the collateral manager has deposited, but many times it is not deposited. So what we are saying that by way of e-release orders, that will reduce the risk. Then how to scale last slide. How to scale up is one of 2-3 things we feel that we should have handy product offerings with a technological upliftment, then CM modernization. So many CMs are even giving photographs at the time of warehouse addition also. Even whenever his guy visits the warehouse, he gives, we get some video also. Next. Then this farm to fork, if we do it agri value chain funding, that will increase the business. With this 100 crores limit on agri processes, yes, we can increase the business. I think that's it. I just roll over the total system. Other points I'll cover in question answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhakar. Sorry again. There's going to be a rapid fire session, and therefore I'm going to invite straight away KM Singh, Yes Bank, to talk about Yes Bank perspective. Please. Your time starts now.
So, coming straight to the point, as pointed rightly by Prabhakar, there are 6-7 risks in a commodity business. So one is the quality, one is the quantity, other is price. Then 2 other risks which Yes Bank sees from a perspective that's also true is that when we take a call, bank takes a credit call and then sees commodity as a security. So if something goes wrong on our scanning of a credit, I have a security in the form of commodity which is going to act as a cushion for me and getting my money back when the time is needed. So if I am able to decrease this quality, quantity or a price risk, or a disposal risk and a legal risk, then actually this commodity finance should automatically grow. The reason is that the risk and the growth of a commodity finance business is inversely proportional to each other. So in last 10 years, if I see, I can proudly say that our channel partners, whether it is Star Agri or others, they have drastically improved on measurement of a quantity which happens and largely on part of a quality. But what happens is that still, the operational procedure which are involved in terms of, checking this, the cost for that is quite high. So with, the new technologies coming up, we need to find some ways where, a single guy can operate over larger territories or areas and bring down the cost, which I think Narendra Mishra pointed out that 4 lakhs rupees per annum is a cost for handling one go down. So if it can be brought down to, so with say some scanner or some chip, something like that, so what happens is that the cost drastically comes down, which actually will, surely going to impact in terms of making volume. So there is one point which I see that, how can we grow the commodity finance? Like, say when you go on an airport, so I see that there is some scanner, some body scanner which scans it and, gives a boarding pass and everything is passed out. So if some scanner, there is some scanner, some guy going there, scans it out on a stack and says, yes, wheat, Lokman wheat, this variety over. So, 10 minutes of checking, go down is over. So something like that, I see as a technology which I think is going to be there and it's not far. So this is one. Second is that when we say that commodity is a mitigant. So if I'm saying commodity as a mitigant, and with 6 or 7 risks I have, given to somebody, maybe channel partner or second partners which, come to us and along with us is an insurance. So when something goes wrong or when I'm in a stress, so when a banker or credit guy is in stress, I want all my channel partners to be along with me and work together to, support even the client, support bank and get my money back. So if something goes wrong, say there is a flood, there is theft, there is burglary, I don't want, to cut corners and say that, there is a 36 page of an agreement, there was some comma on it and you have not read, so the claim is rejected. So what happens is that then, if this risk is not mitigated, something else I have to, build it up. So I increase the credit risk, so then when I increase the, the checking formats and everything, then the potential to give money goes down. So this is the appetite. So I want all channel partners to work together and then this can move on. Third thing which I feel is that coming 2016, 2017, one good thing which has happened in the RBI circular is that till now we have been focusing on the 31st March as an outstanding. So you will see all bankers, all channel partners, you're running from the 1st of Jan to 31st of March or say 1st of April morning for getting this commodity finance done. But now what has happened is that so we used to have only Kharif crop and technically the December harvest or January harvest or say some spices which are coming in the month of say February and March, they were the core targets for doing business. So now with the new PSL guidelines coming up saying that you need to have a quarterly outstanding. So what happens is that it opens market for all the farmers who grow wheat, who grow rice and paddy in different quarters, as well as the fourth quarter anyway your balance sheet and bank balance sheet is going to come. So I think automatically this scale of 35,000 crores which you see is primarily because you do business in last 4 months of the year, and the rest 8 months we do some strategy of how to do that business in for last 4 months of the year. So now what will happen is that this 4 months will technically grow to, I feel, to 8 and 9 months. So if it grows to 8 and 9 months, my 35,000 crores of book should automatically increase to 70,000 crores. So 1 lakh crore I see that 3 to 4 years I see that it can easily be achieved. So these are 2-3 points. Fourth point, which is I may be a bit innovative, but if you see in a service spectrum, almost in every business there are people who participate along with each other. So if you see there is a say we use mobiles. So there are various partners who share their spectrum. So you can, Idea can say Airtel, Airtel can sell, can share so any of these spectrum. So Reliance and Reliance can sell. So they buy and sell. So if the channel partners can service can share their the warehousing space, which is very costly for them to open a new startup at some location where they're not present, and after some time because somebody very competitive out there pulls out, the pie for that commodity finance can actually increase. And it also gives comfort to other bankers that there are at least now two channel partners working in the same warehouse with multiple checks and balances. So I feel more, this is one of the innovative thoughts which I have shared on other platforms too. But till now we have not seen something which is on a practical side coming up. So this is other mode which can happen. The fifth thing which we see where commodity finance can grow is new banks which are coming or the small banks which are there. So we do not have a full compendium of borrowers or the warehouse managers or details where I can say these are the guys or these are the warehouses where we need to be slightly cautious of doing funding. Such compendium, if it is prepared, and that too the channel partners can play a major role. So if somebody has pushed any credit bank on a wrong side and has taken fund from some other bank because there was opportunity, there was 31st March operation, I think that can be act as a mechanism for mitigating the interest and developing a comfort on the channel partners. So these are few 4-5 points which I feel that they can act as an enhancer for growing the business. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Singh, for very interesting observation. And I want to comment, if you don't mind. I must mention, if I heard you correctly, you said you finance for one season, probably the Kharif season. Of course, we have two seasons in India, the Kharif season and the Rabi season. But remember, our land use intensity is only 1.3. We have 140 million hectares under cultivation, and in 2 seasons we should actually be doing at land use intensity of 2, which is not there today. We should be cultivating in 280 million hectares. But our current cultivation, both the seasons put together, is only 180 to 185 million hectares, which is our land use intensity is only 1.3. If water is made available, if inputs are made available, our land use intensity can go up. And once it goes up, I think your financing needs will actually will expand very, very rapidly. But that's a big policy issue. And someone like Dr. Alag is an authority who will be able to speak on this. Okay, fine. I want to invite Jaiprakash Guraja from a collateral manager's perspective. He's going to share his thoughts on what's the way forward, what are the new products in the pipeline, scalability, etc., etc.
It's going to be a sprint, so I'll just put my thoughts into the presentation. So I'll try to address the key issue of commodity finance. My co-panelists have addressed several other risks which are associated with commodity finance, but basically commodity finance, the whole premise is that we convert the credit risk into performance risk, and we deploy a collateral manager structure, and that structure is what ensures and protects, and delivers in terms of the performance risk of the borrower. But eventually it gets translated as the operational risk for the collateral manager. Yeah, we have been talking about commodity finance being scalable, and that we are all saying that there is a potential of it growing four times by 2020. And one of the dimensions I would like to just highlight here is that out of 6,000 potential locations in the country, today commodity finance is being delivered at 1,500 locations. That itself is one of the dimensions which justifies this 4-time growth which we are talking about. The limiting factors, of course, is infrastructure, number one. But the one key factor from the collateral manager's perspective is the operational ability. Now, the operational ability is not only the capabilities of the collateral collateral manager, but also the vintage in terms of presence in the geography and the understanding and local intelligence that he gathers. So what are the risks? I'm going to dwell only on one major risk. The major risk, incorrect quality and quantity under custody or inability to enforce custody. Eventually, one of the greatest fears and the ultimate risk in commodity finance is a fraud. And the fraud, typically under a collateral management structure, can happen either due to collusion of the collateral manager on the ground with the borrower or due to negligence or error of the collateral manager. Now, what is collateral management structure? It's basically a combination of people, process, and technology put together, and the whole objective is analyzing and mitigating risk at the earliest. Now, what is the star degree approach? What I'm trying to present to you is we have been dwelling on this issue and we have been trying to find solutions of how to mitigate this fraud as an element in our operations. And we have done a lot of research, we've done a lot of brainstorming, and eventually there's one approach that is what we have found is suitable. And that we have derived from other industries, now other high-risk industries. Now, there are industries where human or process failures can lead to devastating effects. Now, both these industries, the airline industry and the healthcare industry, operate similar to our businesses of warehousing, where the revenues are linked to capacity utilization. And at the same time, while they're looking at capacity utilization, they also need to ensure that any major risk can lead to devastating effect, like an airline crash can lead to the whole brand going topsy-turvy and the business getting affected. Similarly, a healthcare industry. These industries have matured and have identified a solution which they have deployed, and it is called crew resource management. And CRM, I will not go into the definition, I'm sure most of you will check it on your smartphones, is basically an outcome of a 1977 air disaster where two Boeing 747 flights had colluded on the runway and resulted in 577 people dying. So NASA was approached and NASA designed crew resource management. 1981, United Airlines adopted it. By 90s, it was a global standard. All airline industries had adopted it. And by the late 90s, the healthcare industry identified that it could also adopt it. Now, this is exactly what we are looking at, because once CRM was adopted, the number of airline industry accidents came down drastically, and they also realized that the crashes or the disasters are happening 75% because of human errors. So I broadly talk about only 3 principles of crew resource management which we have incorporated into our systems and processes. The first broad principle is error chain. Crew resource management emphasizes, it says that many accidents basically stem from a chain of events. It's not because of one mistake, one single mistake that an accident happens, but it happens because a chain of events. And if there is a system or a process to break the chain, then the accident would not happen. So that's what we have done, is we have gone back, we have brainstormed, and we have redesigned our SOPs based on the nature of assignment. Instead of having a standard SOP for a warehouse, we have said if the nature of assignment is different, we have to treat it and then look at what are the possible probable chain of events that can lead to a fraud and put in those checks in the processes accordingly so that they do not happen. So the nature of assignments can be depending on the factory premises, you have cold storages, you have open yards. So that's how we have redesigned our SOPs based on the error chain principle. Second, the second pillar of crew resource management is about situational awareness. Now this is completely people-oriented activity, heavily people-intensive operations. So we have laid great emphasis in orienting our people towards understanding of several aspects in behavior. Dr. Alag has also guided us and has told us about being very conscious about not building in biases into the processes, and we have ensured that there are certain things which are instigated and they are installed in our team members. One is there are aspects which lead to loss of situational awareness which should not come into the system, so we have built in those. Second, we have trained our manpower in terms of avoiding hazardous attitudes to be piling up, building up and demonstrating in the day-to-day operations. And hence the entire risk culture and the approach of knowing, thinking and then acting. And this is what the basic difference, there's a lot of difference when we tell that being aware and a process being developed for being aware. So there is a multiple level of discussion before a decision or a document is created is built in, that this second principle of true resource management would also be achieved.
Jay Prakash, half a minute.
The last thing is safety improvement. True resource management says that there needs to be a technology or a kind of a process which will take care that even if there's an intentional, like for example, the recent airline pilot who locked in the door and forced the airline to crash is something which is an intentional thing, and there needs to be a technology solution to it. So we have come up with a mobile application which has geo-tagging, geo-fencing and geo-tracking facility, which we believe is going to be a greatest deterrent and will also help in increasing efficiency. Just 2 more slides. So the expectations from the bank, while we're doing what is required from our end, the one major question we need to answer is the tax sensitivity that we have built in gradually in the customer expectation. Is it really genuine? Is it really true? And is it correct to expect a collateral manager to be generating a receipt in 2 hours' time, completing the evaluation, and trying to pressurize the collateral manager to generate receipts as fast as possible during the season is something which we need to seriously think about. Second, there's a lot of expectation from all of you in terms of deliverables from the collateral managers. You want the collateral managers to analyze, assess, give you periodic reports, which we are doing. But the question is, are you seriously considering them and acting on them? For example, the M2M calls which we issue. The third, we would also request that this information sharing should be bi-directional and not only a mere deliverable of the collateral manager. Kindly share early signals with the collateral manager so that jointly we can, ensure that the portfolios don't go bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Guard against fraud. That's what he started to say. I was wondering, like, you have good manufacturing practices, good agriculture practices. Can this industry have good financing practices? Can you evolve your own good financing practices, number one? If you did not do this, then there is a possibility in future there will be a regulator for this market. Do you want a governmental regulatory oversight, or you want to have your own self-imposed discipline? That's a call which this industry needs to take. Thank you very much. We now invite Ravi Shankar Mantha to share his thoughts.
Yeah, hi. So, coming to the point, see, as bankers, we are very focused on providing, for any product that we take, right, whether it's a loan against shares or loan against, say, property, or any financial decision that we take where we are writing a check, there's a huge amount of trust that we lay on every quantum of data that comes in our hand. Yeah? That's the financial industry. The data is very well structured. We understand the implications of what happens if there is an EPS price call which drops because your value of your stock will come down. Or what happens if there is property, if there is a cash crunch in the system, we know that property prices are going to be under challenge. The point is we have a fantastic understanding when it comes to looking at data from the financial industry perspective. Yeah? We all are trained to understand and handle that very efficiently. We handle most complex of the models to analyze every bit of data that is thrown across at us, whether it's a macro data or it's a micro data. Now, having said that, it's important also to understand, given the context in which we are going to be operating specifically in the agriculture and agro-commodities zone, yeah? Because this is where the data is most scattered, there is no structure, and the authenticity and the reliability of data becomes the biggest question. Whether you ask a government servant or you ask a private player, you'll have a different perspective. Yeah? So that's where we are operating. So given this maze of uncertain, unstructured data, it's very all the more important for us to try to get a perspective. And I would say to the extent that we need to really polish our skill sets, not just from the perspective of looking at providing commodity and warehouse-based finances just on the basis of the balance sheet, but we need to move to the next level, which is where the structured commodity comes in, where we don't look at the balance sheet, but just look at the pure stock. And that is where the world, the point that Parvesh Sharmaji was making in the morning, that the advanced structures that are there, they are there operating in West Africa, they are operating in South America very efficiently, to the extent that they get down to creating commodity bonds and commodity repo. For example, Rabobank, it's a cooperative bank, but it's never failed. Obviously, because it creates a commodity repo. And we are moving in that. With the FMC and with the FMC coming under SEBI, I think it opens up a different kind of challenge altogether. And it opens up a huge amount of wonderful opportunity. Because we can start talking about commodity repos, we can start talking about commodity bonds. That's where we're going to move it. Now, if that's where we're going to move it, we need to get a sense of what exactly constitutes the various parameters of the agriculture data. Because that is what is going to drive whether a single point, what is price, which leads into volatility, which eats up into our, what we call is a haircut and margin, because we typically take about 25 to 30%. Obviously, that cannot be sustainable. That's one of the major problems is that we are not able to, since we have a challenge at our end, we pass on that challenge to our customer, whosoever that is, and say, look, I can't handle this risk, I'm going to take a 25 to 30% cut, and I'm very happy with that. So obviously, you can't have a growth. So the point is, if you look at the various in terms of the real-time data, the domestic, international, so there is a whole plethora of data sets which are being thrown at. But how efficiently am I really making sense out of? Yeah. So here, like I said, we talked about in terms of and also I think it's important to get a sense of what is happening on the ground. Yeah, we need to really get that in fix. Because that's where the data sets will start triggering. Because what happens, for example, today, we are on the ground in a couple of places in Maharashtra, in a couple of states, talking to a lot of farmers. The perspective that is coming from there is what needs to be fed in to looking at my risk mitigation program. Looking at the parameters that I'm trying. Whether it's a concentration risk in terms of the commodity, whether it's a price risk in terms of volatility, or whether it's in terms of warehouses that are running, or a crop risk that are running. The point is we need to look at each of these data sets very, very intensely. That's the point we need to get into because we are trained to use data in much more efficient way. So in terms of, we've got some of the data which can be broken into static data, dynamic data, various parameters which come over a period of time, domestic imports, farm size holding, there are agriculture census which happens. So there's a whole lot of stuff which is out there which can give us a good amount of sense, which can probably feed into what we, broadly define as in terms of what kind of a matrix that you get into. We look at market, we look at price, and you get into providing them some kind of a measurement, and then give them a scorecard, which can give you a perspective as to where the portfolio is really going. So in order to feed this part of it, is what I need to go back into each of the various parameters that are affecting on a multi-scale of dynamic to probably a static kind of a setup. So, yes sir, I'm done. Thank you. So the objective is in terms of really creating a quantifiable perspective. Yeah, we need to really quantify each and every element, just the way we do our financial engineering. The same principles have to be applied to the principles of providing loan to the agriculture sector, and more so for the commodity part of it, where where we are holding the entire commodity in our account, and maybe going forward, we'll start looking at balance sheets and just look at the commodity trade. When that comes into play, all the more reason for us to get a deeper perspective as to where and what is happening, so that I can create a more dynamic perspective in terms of we create multiple flags. Because ultimately, if you look at when we talk about farmers, but obviously they never put the stock in the warehouses. I'm sure they will happen. Maybe that will also happen with the kind of farm organization that are happening. Their repayment capability is dependent on the crop income that they have. And crop income obviously is dependent on the crop and so on and so on and so forth. So this flags is what we try to can be created when you have a very robust data management program in-house focused on the agriculture part. That's the point we need to really start looking at. Because that's where we're going. Because that's exactly where the entire, the shift is going to be. Unless that is there, today we're talking about 8 lakh crores, and obviously that's about 10%. Imagine if it's going to go to 15% and 20% or 18%. And we're talking about 35,000 crores moving up to 100,000 crores, or maybe more. But the point is my system, is my internal perspective, am I internally very robust in creating, in mapping each of the data elements that is being thrown on our face? That's the point. And I would love to leave the thought of Bob Dylan, the legend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi Shankar. Data collection, data collation, analysis and interpretation. Finally, that's what is commercial intelligence all about. Thank you very much. I have exactly 2 minutes to wrap up this session. 2 questions. Is it the first one? Okay, please. Quick question, and I'm sure there'll be a snappy answer.
We are talking here about covering the risk in the commodity business and scaling it up further. When we talk about scaling it up, you know, in banking perspective, the credit bureaus have played a very vital role in reducing the credit risk of the banks, though it may be CIBIL in the normal lending process or the high mark Equifax in the MFI space. But I think commodity business, all my bank colleagues will agree that there is no database or the forum or the ecosystem created, or this credit bureau have been advised by the banks to create a separate ecosystem for the commodity business so as to capture the default not only at the borrower level but also at the warehouse level, CM level, location level as well as commodity level. So I think this forum should take an opportunity and pass on a common agreement to approach to the existing arrangements of the credit bureau to develop an ecosystem that will help us in creating the default database and reduce our credit risk. And I think other bankers will also agree with me.
I think the point is well taken. Very well said.
Well taken.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're talking about warehouse level delinquency, right? So if you go through the WDRA, now WDRA is looking at blocking the warehouse accreditation. So slowly when we are going through from FMC going to SEBI, automatically all the warehouses, wherever there will be a structured funding or specifically stock exchange related, commodity stocks related funding or a commodity exchange related funding, all warehouses will be accredited warehouses, and WDRA is going to ban those warehouses and those will be available on the site on WDRA. As why I am telling you, because I am one of the member on that committee from private banks. So what about other warehouses? Other warehouses, I don't think there is any system right now, but we as a bankers, I think we have sufficient networking with each other. Let us keep it alive till government do something. Let us not expect everything from government. That I can say.
So the rules will tighten soon. That is all he's saying. Just add one here.
I think the first thing, my ED saw me today morning, he came up to me and says that don't wait for everybody to get together to open a database of frauds or defaulters or anything. You immediately get into starting a portal which will be accessible to all the users. So Mr. Mundawara told me the first thing today morning, he said that you got to do it as soon as possible. So I think we'll do it, and what we'll do is we all can share access and start sharing information, because it's end of the day a very closed user group of maybe 100 odd entities, not everything.
Perfect. I think.
Go ahead, sir. One brief question.
Yeah, very brief.
Very brief. Within 10 words.
Yeah, not more than 10 words. The question is, are banks paying enough for putting the risk mitigants in place?
That puts the banker.
Everything comes with a cost.
Shall we put the other banker in the spot, sir?
No, I think he will also pass it on to you. Because you see, a lot of friends saw me and they said, sir, I am seeing you same weight, same height for last 10 years. I said, yeah, mostly same. Why? Because I am handling commodity finance for last 10 years. So isn't it that commodity bankers are putting real efforts into this? Yes. Yeah, apart from lighter movement, what banks are doing, most of the banks up 2007-8, they have started their one group of people or officers who inspect the warehouses and who keep on checking on surveillance of the collateral managers also. So I think this has started by all the banks. So banks are doing that. Another thing is, JP asked about M2M. I think most of the banks are doing M2M. Whether they are started religiously they are doing or not, up to each organization. But as I know some of the private banks, they are doing it religiously. About public sector, I will not be able to comment. Mr. Sinha will put some light on that.
The question is more in terms of collateral management fees, in whether the collateral manager-
You are talking about whether banks will look at increasing the collateral management fee.
Yeah, because they are taking undue, I mean, a huge amount of risk. So I think all these mitigants that need to be put in place will cost.
I appreciate your question because we, as a bank today, this is one of the product which is highest cost. Is 40% of cost to income ratio is there, which is very high in any product of any bank. But we know that unless and until our business partner, that is collateralized and comfortable in business, we don't want to pull their profits down. So we also try to take care of their profits and keep on increasing collateral fees every year.
Anyway, it is not something that can be discussed in an open forum. We need to sit together and sort it out. Thank you very much. I now declare this session closed and hand over the mic to your.
Go ahead.